This edition of the Therapist Podcast, I'm speaking with Teagan King, who is currently enrolled in her honours year in psychology. Teagan is planning to embark on a career as a psychologist and also happens to be my daughter. Teagan has already accessed a range of experiences and attended additional CBT opportunities as a beginning practitioner. Teagan's CPD opportunities have enabled her to commence her career path with some industry-based experiences in counselling, research and group work. We'll discuss these today. Welcome to the Therapist Podcast, Teagan.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start with university. I imagine things may have changed since the restrictions that we have here in Victoria with COVID-19. I'd be interested in hearing about what it's like for you to be a Bachelor of Psychology honours student at the moment.
Yeah, it is quite different. I'm pretty lucky though with my university because it already was online, so that was already an option. So we've got online recorded lectures and recorded seminars, but what's really different is that you don't have the option of going to class, and all exams now are online.
Yeah,
it's quite different.
I could see that would be a challenge. I know online learning, I'm doing a few webinars these days, and doing an online webinar, you really do need to make the online learning a little bit shorter. It's not a full day of learning. It's better to do it in sections.
Yeah, that's right. It is quite hard to look at a screen all day.
How are you staying motivated being a student in these times?
So I find myself quite motivated because I'm really interested in the content that I'm learning.
Yep.
And I also find the assignments really good. But I do keep motivated by having regular breaks and making sure that I'm not just staring at a computer screen all day. So sometimes I'll go outside for a walk or a run just for a quick energy boost.
And I'm glad to hear that, because one of the things that I do suggest to clinicians when I'm providing supervision is look after yourself outside the sessions. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people are doing now with COVID-19 is getting out there, doing exercise, breaking up their day.
Yeah, I'm finding that very helpful.
And so I would imagine that even with exercise and a whole range of things, you've had to adapt. How have you adapted with exercise and that? You can't go to the gym or anything like that?
Yeah, that's right. I did actually play football, and obviously that's been put on hold, which is a bit disappointing. So instead I've been just running outside to keep up my fitness, and I've also been using online apps for workout routines, which have been good.
Excellent. And one of the reasons why I want to talk about that a little bit, and I want people to think about this when they're starting out in a career in psychology and mental health, is that vicarious trauma is a really big concern, burnout and a whole range of things for individuals, especially beginning practitioners. And vicarious trauma is when people hear enough trauma stories over and over again, the trauma infiltrates the body as if the individual therapist has been through the trauma themselves. So I'm really glad to hear that you are doing these things, and it's something that you have naturally done. As I said in the introduction, I'm your father, so I do know a little bit about what you've done in the past.
Yeah.
And what sort of work experience have you had? So I would imagine finding a career, and I remember in high school, a lot of people come and do work experience at health clinics and a whole range of things. Did you have any work experience?
Yes, I do have a bit of work experience. I was quite lucky because both of my parents, as you mentioned, was in the mental health field. So I did do quite a bit of administration. I did that at the Centre for Mental Health Education and also at a specialist clinic. So that was really good, and I got to talk with a lot of different mental health professionals.
And you also, just from memory, you did some work experience in the public mental health service.
That's right. I did do my school work experience for the CAT team, the Crisis Assessment Treatment team at the Alfred Hospital. That was a great experience. Yeah,
and what did you gain from that? Did that help direct you into your career and interest in mental health?
Yes, definitely. I've always been very interested in helping people, and just to see people at risk and vulnerable, just really shows that mental health professionals can have a big impact.
You've got a whole lot of life experience already in your first 22 years, yeah?
Yeah, that's right. So when I was a bit younger, I volunteered for an Indigenous homeless charity. So I volunteered at the Children's Day, where we learnt about Aboriginal culture and cultural beliefs.
Yeah, and there was a whole lot, remembering there was a whole lot of activities there, learning about totems and certain animals and how the land was important. So it really is interesting getting different people's perspectives.
Definitely. And also makes you a lot more open-minded to different culture and different people.
Yeah. And I said, I've got a little bit more insight into your beginning, given that we're related.
Yes.
And I remember one day driving you and a whole lot of your friends to a central Victorian location from Melbourne, and I was really interested. And I think you're all in like grade 6 or year 7 or 8, and you're all talking about your experiences of different cultures through all the travel that you've done.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
I actually do remember that. I have done quite a lot of travel. I've travelled to America, Mexico, Thailand, Vietnam, Bali.
And what did you enjoy about those experiences? What did you notice about those experiences, and how do you think that they can sort of set you up for your career? How is that going to help your career, having those sort of enjoyable experiences? Well, hopefully they were enjoyable.
Oh, they were definitely enjoyable. Well, I learnt about different culture, different mannerisms, just learning that everyone's different, and just opening my mind to different people, which I think will be very beneficial as a psychologist.
Hey, look, this is the thing, is a lot of times in therapy there'll be a whole lot of things that come up that may even shock you at times.
Yeah.
And I believe the beauty of travel, and this is not the reason that we said let's travel, we just like travel, but the beauty of travel and noticing different cultures is that the more open your mind is, the less judgment that you're going to have in your therapy as a clinician down the track.
Yeah, that's right. And I also think it's very important because Australia is very diverse.
Yeah. And so you're getting to know, that's true. So the individuals that you're seeing one-on-one may come from a different cultural background to you. And so having that knowledge and different socioeconomic levels, different beliefs, different religions, and given the locations you've been, you've seen religions from Mexico where there's strong Catholic influence, Thailand where there's strong Buddhism, and Vietnam as well. And then Indonesia through Bali and stuff, we saw some people who are more, Muslim background as well. So you've got a whole range of cultural beliefs and values that may be different to yours. And this is a challenge as a beginning practitioner, is not bringing in, well, this is the way things should be, that black and white thinking we talk about in DBT.
Yeah.
But being able to look at other cultures and integrate other people's beliefs, and then using those beliefs to teach these skills and resources to make sure that somebody's stabilised. So, for example, when I work with a lot of people with Buddhist type beliefs, I talk about Buddha and harming self and harming other people with words and a whole range of things, and help provide some sort of psychoeducation, which we know psychoeducation, we're talking about evidence-based treatment before as well. Psychoeducation is one of the most evidence-based approaches. If you look at the Australian Psychological Society's literature on this, it says that psychoed is the most evidence-based treatment because it covers a whole range of therapies. And I do bring in people's cultural beliefs, the cultural experiences. I check in with them first in order to teach those sort of stabilisation skills. So I can see the value of travel, and it sounds like you have as well.
Yes, definitely.
So I know one of the challenges is a lot of the degrees now are really looking for, and I'm talking more about the postgraduate degrees, are really looking for beginning practitioners to have a whole range of different experiences, so that they have some life experience but also some clinical experiences before entering these type of degrees.
So at the moment I'm an ABA therapist, which is an applied behaviour analysis therapist for children with autism spectrum disorder.
Wow.
Yeah, and the programs are very individualised to each client, and it's evidence-based, and we take a lot of data out for our sessions.
So what are the ages of people you're working with at the moment?
So at the moment the ages range from 3 to 6, and each session is about 2 hours.
Wow.
They really recommend having sessions quite regular with different therapists as well.
And so how regular is quite regular?
Probably every day.
Wow.
So 1 or 2 sessions a day. It's very intensive.
And what sort of changes do you see in the young people you're working with?
Yes, so we do see quite a few changes quite quickly because we do have a lot of sessions. So we're really working on communication difficulties.
So do you see an improvement in communication?
Yes, we do. And also behaviour. So we do take behaviour data, and most clients have a behavioural plan, and we work on that as well.
And you said that you see changes fairly quickly. What do you mean by fairly quickly? Like weeks, days, months?
That's a good question. Probably within a couple of weeks.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so we do have to adapt the programs quite regularly to work on different things.
So you're gaining experience by working one-on-one with young people.
Yeah.
And you're working with a multidisciplinary team. Do you have like supervision, support?
Yes, we do have a case manager who does actually make all of the programs, and we have fortnightly meetings with them.
Yep.
So then we can go through our challenges, our strengths, and we can also help come up with the programs together.
So how are you finding that process of support and supervision and sort of review of your clinical practice already at such a young age?
Yeah, I think it's really beneficial just to make sure that we're all on the right track, to make sure that there's room for improvement.
And so one of the things I was talking about just before was vicarious trauma, and one of the indicators for the risk factors for vicarious trauma is not getting supervision.
Yeah.
But also not engaging in pleasant activities for yourself, not looking after yourself, not reviewing the content. So within the ABA therapy, is there any mechanism of support if something stressful occurs?
Definitely. Well, we can always talk to the case manager or anyone on the therapist team. So we do have quite a few therapists. And we all have a group chat, which is really great, so we can talk about our experiences.
And you're also working with the Australian DBT Institute as a research assistant and DBT Skills Trainer?
Yes, that's right. So at the moment we're doing a DBT group.
Yep.
So that's a dialectical behaviour therapy group.
Yep. And what's your input into that program? What sort of things are you doing in that DBT group?
So at the moment I'm doing a lot of the research side. So we took initial data before it started, and I'm just going to keep on taking data out through the program to see what the differences are.
Yep.
And also the program, because of COVID-19, is all online. So that's been quite a struggle.
Definitely.
And I'm also helping to teach the DBT skills to the clients.
And what skills are you up to in the program at the moment?
So we're up to our second week, and the skills we're focusing on is mindfulness.
Excellent. And how are you finding mindfulness?
I'm finding it really good. I think everyone can use it in their daily lives, just to think about the present moment, not think about what's happened in the past or the future.
Yeah, and so that's it. And DBT really does focus on this is what's happening right now, even if there's distractions or judgments and a whole range of things, just noticing that they're there, and that's part of what the program's teaching.
Yeah.
And how do you think other clinicians are coping with the technology and the consumers within the group? How's everyone coping with technology?
Well, it's certainly a big change. Yeah, because there are definitely varying levels of knowledge about technology, and also you really have to rely on the Wi-Fi. So sometimes it can get fuzzy or the sound's not working, so it's just a lot of things you have to take into consideration.
And I've found that myself we're moving a lot of and this is one of the reasons I'm doing this podcast, I'm getting used to using a whole range of online mediums. And the beauty of teaching DBT is that you can teach radical acceptance skills, accepting that the Wi-Fi won't work and a whole range of things, and noticing the frustrations that build up in a whole range. So DBT, I think, is really good to be able to teach skills and the issues that come up in therapy or the issues that come up in group. Any other issues, you apply DBT skills right now.
Yeah.
And what do you think about research? Is research something that you'd like to do in the future?
Yes, I'm very interested in research. At the moment I'm doing my honours year of psychology, so I am doing a big project, and it's very new to me, but it's very interesting.
And I know I'm probably jumping ahead of time, but from what I understand about honours programs is that there's an expectation at the end of your honours program that one of the assignments, I don't know if it's in your honours program, but one of the assignments is usually to develop your doctorate project or a research proposal for further research.
Yes, that's definitely an opportunity that people have.
Yep. have you thought about research yet, or are you just sticking in the moment and working with what you've got in front of you at the moment?
A bit of both. I have been thinking a bit about the doctorate or masters. I'd be really interested in looking at DBT, if there's a supervisor who specialises in that.
Yep. Yeah, I don't think you can have your dad supervising it, or you might not want your dad supervising.
I don't think that's allowed.
And I guess we've got a whole lot of resources through the Australian DBT Institute to be able to do that, and that's great. And one of the things that we've been really careful when we're doing our research is to make sure that we've got a group of clinicians with PhDs and doctorate degrees to be able to make sure the research is available, and if anybody would like to use some of the content, we follow these high standards that the universities hold. So that might well be an opportunity for you. So given that you have starting to gain some experience, and it sounds like, how long do you think you've been building this experience for?
Oh, good question. Probably about 5 years.
Yeah. And do you think that even from the original time when you were in high school and you did the work experience of the CAT team, do you think that any of the areas that you've been working in, do you think they've sort of directed you or pushed you towards a certain area in mental health already? And I'm not trying to get you to think that you're going to be in one area for the rest of your life, but can you think of any areas that particularly have gained your interest or attention?
I'm actually quite interested in a lot of different areas, particularly recently with borderline personality disorder, with the DBT groups and the DBT skills I've been learning about. I think that's very interesting.
And I think, well, that would be great, because there is still a lot of stigma about the diagnosis that we've talked about in the DBT programs. And it's a challenge to get people to be motivated in working with borderline personality disorder. But for myself, my interest working with borderline personality disorder and trauma was using some of the strategies and then seeing how successful they were and being more motivated to do it, given that other people say you can't provide treatment to these diagnostic areas. So for me, that's what I was thinking is really useful. I don't know about yourself.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Yeah. In Australia, so there are people that listen to this podcast outside Australia.
Yeah.
In Australia, the career that you're looking for is to become a psychologist, a clinical psychologist. Right. So we need to do a degree, your honours degree, and then a master's with a PhD or a master's or a doctorate degree.
Yes, that's right. Lots of years of study.
So how many years of study is it to become a psychologist in Australia?
Probably a minimum of 6 years.
Sure.
But it could be anywhere between 6 or 8 if it's full-time.
And that's it. And so some people choose a part-time path as well. Some people take a gap, or like yourself, you're fairly busy with making sure that you have a whole range of clinical experiences to draw on.
Yep, that's right.
So tell me a little bit more about e-therapy and what you've been doing with e-therapy.
I've been looking at the effectiveness of online therapy, so e-therapy, compared to face-to-face therapy. And also some studies have found that it's actually has the same effectiveness.
Well, I'd say so e-therapy is just as effective as face-to-face therapy.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're doing some research on this too as well?
Yes, I am, for my honours subject, and we're also looking at the usability of online interventions.
Oh, wow. And you're also crossing over into the Australian DBT Institute DBT program, where we've moved all of those programs online as well.
Exactly, and that's also what my DBT Institute research project's about, the effectiveness of this new program, but online.
Excellent. And for yourself, I guess the generation that is a little bit different to when I was doing university. When I started in my university, there was we didn't use the internet the same way. There were no Windows-based internet. It was all script-based.
Yeah.
And we had to use microfilm to find research articles and photocopy them and the like. And so you've been brought up in a time where the online world has been acceptable and been part of your education.
Yeah, it's definitely been evolving a lot.
So it really is a new world where most education these days has some kind of online component.
Yes, that's right. Technology has definitely evolved, and I think it's great for interventions and treatments, because it definitely eliminates some of the barriers of face-to-face treatment, such as waiting times. If you have something on your mobile phone, for example, you can access the treatment whenever, which is also really good for self-monitoring, and also it eliminates the barrier of geography.
And there are great apps now. You know, there's the Headspace app, the mindfulness app, there's Insight Timer, there's plenty of apps for mindfulness and for therapy. DBT, we know that there's a whole range of diary card apps that are available. For you and technology, what do you think is the biggest challenge in using the technology?
The biggest challenge for me personally,
Yeah, for
or
you personally.
people in general?
Yeah.
Well, with interventions, for example, the DBT group, the biggest thing is that it really relies on everyone's Wi-Fi and internet. And
So
I find that
Wi-Fi
quite
is-
challenging.
Yes, Wi-Fi is a bit of a challenge.
Yes.
And because not everybody's on the highest type of broadband internet or NBN, whatever it's called these
Yeah,
days.
that's right. And it's also a bit more challenging because it's a bit hard to judge how someone else is feeling if they're not sat right in front of you.
Yeah.
It's a bit harder to judge.
And that's and we've had that discussion at the Australian DBT Institute as well, and we've decided that we won't accept any new referrals unless somebody has a crisis management plan, and part of that crisis management plan needs to indicate what do we do when we're in group if somebody needs to access crisis support, and I think we all need to adapt, and telehealth is definitely something that the Australian government's focusing on now, so I think it's an interesting time.
Yeah.
And for me, I don't know about you, but what I've seen for people that I've been working with using telehealth is that it's an opportunity to work together. And sometimes as a clinician, I don't know all the answers with telehealth, and some people that I'm working with may know more, and it brings us at like a level playing ground. That's what we're looking for in a therapeutic relationship. Not for the therapist to be dominant, to know everything or anything like that, because everyone's different, as you were saying before.
Yeah.
And I'm interested in what you talked about with the ABA therapy, is that there's individualised treatment plans for everybody, and there's a treatment team developing it, as well as a treatment team providing the service.
Yes.
And I think that's the new way to look at therapy. We also use, how are you finding the homework that we're setting for participants in the DBT group?
I found the homework really good, and it's also really good that everyone's been completing it. So it must definitely be achievable.
So talk about how we're setting the homework in the DBT program.
Okay, so at the end of the session, once we've gone through the skill, we set homework just to really consolidate the skill, but we make sure that it's externalized.
Meaning the skills externalized, so apply it external to you.
That's right, just to eliminate the stress of like internalizing the skill. And so what we've done is we get the participants to find online videos, and that's been really helpful. So online videos of TV characters or movie characters doing the skill.
Using the skill.
Yeah.
And one of the other things that we've told the participants in the group is if somebody can't find a skill online, find where a skill could have been used.
Yeah.
And that's also, I'm really looking forward to, hopefully people do that in the future. At the moment, in a lot of the programs I've run, that people usually are able to find the skill, but a couple of people one-on-one have been having trouble finding the skill, and they've found where a skill could have been used.
Yeah.
And I find it makes people really consolidate that skill even more, because they're applying it external to themselves, like we were talking before.
Exactly.
Sounds like a pretty good doctorate research project to me.
Yes.
So, has there been any changes with timing? So what happens with your honours degree now? Do you finish still at the same time, or has that been extended?
So at the moment we're still finishing at the same time. I'm not sure whether that will change.
Yeah.
The only main difference with the honours degree is that now the exams are online.
Oh, really?
Which is quite different, yeah.
So you're used to being in person.
Exactly, and they're also open book.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. And open book sometimes can be more confusing and more difficult because you've got
Exactly.
so much information.
Yeah.
You're looking through it and spending time looking at different pieces of information.
Or, yeah, exactly. And also, sometimes with open book, I feel like people think they don't have to study.
Yeah.
But really, I think that we still have to study for the open book, and just in case, we can flick through and see what we need.
Sure. And I think that's also getting back to the DBT program, when we're getting people to watch the skill online before the group.
Yes.
I think that also allows people to stop and start and spend a little bit more time on learning. And this is the challenge, but also the benefit of online learning is that people can stop a lecture. I remember when I've provided lectures, sometimes I'm really in the moment and providing all the information, and a participant goes, "Oh, can you just repeat what you said?"
Yeah.
That can be a real challenge.
Yeah.
Whereas online, you can stop and start, and it's actually a process called the reverse classroom. So it's started to be researched using this method.
Yeah.
For yourself, what do you think the challenges are for you as a beginning practitioner over the next 12 months?
I think the challenges are really gaining face-to-face experience and also managing the honours course load.
Yeah.
I think that's quite difficult.
And so this is it. Early in your career, you're actually using another behavioural strategy, you're shaping yourself to be able to be more functional down the track of balancing demands and balancing a whole range of things. So it sounds like that you've got a fairly big workload and a fairly big commitment.
Yes, the workload is definitely different to undergraduate, just because there's always a thesis that you could be doing or that you have to be doing.
Yep.
So there's no real break, and you've also got the subjects on top of that.
So look, I want you to think about, so there's a strategy called ACT, Acceptance and Commitment Therapy.
Yeah.
And one of the strategies when we're using their model of ACT that we ask individuals to think about is the way they'd like things to be in 12 months, 3 years and 5 years. For your career, what do you think you'd like your career to look like in 12 months?
Oh, in 12 months.
Challenging question.
If all goes well, I really hope to be in master's or doctorate. That's definitely my aim. And also just to continue with my work experience.
So consolidating the skills that you're getting now.
Yeah.
And how about, 3 years' time? So in 3 years' time, if you were to get into a master's degree, it'd be nearly finished, or a doctorate degree most of the way through?
Yeah. I probably haven't looked that far ahead.
No troubles.
And especially if I'm doing doctorate, I'll still be engrossed in the thesis.
And the research.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you've got a fairly big commitment to be doing research and looking at the way that interventions can be provided more effectively.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, is there anything else, Teagan, that you want to share? I'm really interested, and I think a lot of people listening to this, hopefully there'll be a few beginning practitioners or people in university courses or thinking about doing a degree in psychology or moving towards becoming a psychologist, even if somebody's got experience as a counsellor beforehand, which you've done some short courses and some training in counselling.
Yeah. I've done quite a bit of learning in ABA therapy and also DBT.
And were they face-to-face or online programs?
A bit of a mix, but mainly face-to-face.
Okay.
Yeah, which I found quite good. And I also learnt how to apply DBT to private practice, which will be very good in the future.
Yep. And I guess that's the challenge, is a lot of people are concerned about working with borderline personality disorder in private practice, but it's something that I know that I'm naturally, I work in the area, and your mum also works in the area of working with people with borderline personality disorder as a clinical psychologist. So for yourself as a clinician, a beginning clinician, what sort of advice would you give to people thinking about taking the pathway that you're taking right now? What do you think's been useful so far, and what sort of things do you think are the essentials of having a career in this field?
Yeah, I think it's really essential that you enjoy psychology and you actually enjoy the content, because that'll make all the years of study a lot more beneficial and a lot more, easier to do, worthwhile, yeah. And I also think that you should really want to help people and have empathy. I think that's a big thing. And just be able to actively listen to people and listen about their problems.
Yeah. And I don't know if you're recognising it, but from talking to you and knowing what you do, is you do a lot of turning off as well. So turning yourself away from psychology. Psychology's, although you have parents in the area, but I know you've got other interests, and I think that they also hold you in good stead down the track and keep you within this field.
Yeah, definitely. I think other interests are very important to prevent burnout, which is what you were saying before. So my interests definitely include, well, watching TV, playing football, just getting outside.
So you like sport, you like activity.
Yeah.
You play a contact sport.
Yes.
Which is a bit scary. But also this is the other thing is I've provided some supervision to a whole range of beginning practitioners who just spend the time watching psychological thrillers and looking at YouTube of psychology and a whole range of things. And what I've seen for myself and other people that have been useful is watching those sort of shows that are with a bit of humour, a bit of fun.
Yeah.
You don't have to think. And that switching off is really important, especially if you can practice that. And it's like building the mental muscle to be able to function a little bit down the track.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to say?
No, I think we've covered everything.
We've covered a fair bit, haven't we?
Yes.
Well, thanks for joining me, and good luck with your career. And I'm naturally able to follow it, but hopefully some people also see some of the benefits of all the energy you're putting into becoming a psychologist.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me.
Cheers.
So there you go, the second episode of the Therapist Podcast. Definitely a different medium for me. I'm enjoying the podcast. I really want to thank Teagan for volunteering and being involved. It's really interesting to hear from people beginning out in a career in the mental health sector. And it was interesting to hear that there's so much more than just attending a university course to becoming a mental health professional. And I'm really encouraged to hear that in the sector and the universities are now ensuring that young people are getting a whole range of different experiences under their belt before they embark on postgraduate study. It's a long road to being a health professional, and it's a very rewarding road as well, but looking after yourself I think is really essential. One of the challenges is getting clinicians to look after themselves. We know there's a high level of burnout in our profession, and I recall a number of years ago where we were running a workshop on, we called it Help for the Helper, getting people to look after themselves, ensuring that people don't get burnt out and get to the point where they may have vicarious trauma and other ailments that stop people from being mental health professionals. And we only had 3 or 4 people registering, and we brought Babette Rothschild out from the United States, and it was a little bit disheartening for me. And I know that we need to have that sort of support, so I encourage people to get out there and get some support, do something creative. We know that trauma and trauma memories are not stored in the verbal part of the brain. They are stored in that creative side of the brain. So get out and do gardening and make meals, be creative, express yourself in ways, and look after yourself so we have more mental health professionals remain in the industry. So time to get off my soapbox.